19-year-old Dylan Rounds was a hardworking young man trying to make a living on his own ranch at the Bonneville Lake region, one of the most desolate landscapes in America. Somewhere out in the scrub and sand among the old ghost towns, that unforgiving land just swallowed him up, and he was never seen alive again. Join us as we look into the mysterious disappearance of Dylan Rounds and the massive search for clues, any clues that would have returned the young man to his loving family. Before we begin, we would like to extend our deepest sympathies to the family and loved ones of Dylan Rounds, a young man who was just beginning to make his way in the world and live out his dreams. It was Memorial Day weekend, and just across the state line in Wendover, Nevada, Speed Week was just finishing up at the famed Bonneville Salt Flats. That Saturday morning, revelers were sleeping in or just heading out for new activities. But Dylan Rounds was different. He was a young farmer trying to get ahead and make something out of the rough, unyielding land he had purchased. Just after sunrise that morning, he was getting ready to start seeding a field with triticale, a grain crop used as fodder for cattle. Before firing up his grain truck and getting to work, he stopped to check the weather report on his phone. Records would show that he also watched a couple of videos on TikTok and then called his grandmother just to check in. He told her he was going to work for as long as he could that morning, but the weather report was calling for heavy rain. He wouldn't be able to get all of the seed spread, so his plans were to get as much done as he could before taking the truck back to a nearby shed where he could park it under cover and save the remaining seed. He'd just spent more than $8,000 for this seed, and that much money was hard to come by. He then told her he would have to walk back to his camper, a distance of about 2 miles from the shed. It wasn't a problem, he told her. He did it all the time. And that is apparently just what he did, up to a point. Let's pause a moment and take a look at the area. Dylan and a scant few other people were living in an area that was once the environs of Lucin, Utah, a small watering station along a railroad that has long since been abandoned. Lucin quickly became a ghost town with a few odd abandoned mines nearby, probably fewer than 5 semi-permanent residents who were often outnumbered by the tumbleweeds blowing through the place. There was an art installation nearby called the Sun Tunnels, put in 50 years ago, but visitors there are just a now-and-then kind of thing. A few folks who would rather spend their time alone make their homes in the scrubby desert surrounding the old ghost town, and there are a few farms and ranches scattered about. The closest active town was Montello, just across the state line in Nevada. It is a rough and tumble place of about 70 people, but the closest thing to civilization for folks eking out a living near Lucin. So, back to that Saturday morning at the end of May. Dylan gets a portion of the field seeded and heads back to the shed where he can put away the big grain truck. That part everyone is pretty sure of, but from there things get sketchy. Dylan never called his grandmother back that evening to let her know that he had made it in okay. The next morning, he didn't answer her calls or those from his mother. He had been known to let his phone run out of charge before, so it wasn't really anything out of the ordinary. But then on Monday, he still wasn't answering calls or texts. That's when his mother, Candace Cooley, headed to Box Elder County, Utah, in an effort to get some help from the local sheriff's department. They would meet her, Dylan's dad, Justin Rounds, and 2 other people who lived in the area and often worked with Dylan, Jim Brenner and Don Hatley.
Hi, Candace.
Hi, Candace.
Justin, Dylan's dad.
Hi, Justin.
Yeah, so right up here at these yards is his last known location. His camper is about 4 miles back up this way by his pond, and we're really thinking he might have been taken off and across. Because there's been no phone calls on his phone.
Yeah, I did get it.
Okay.
Last location was 15.4 miles from the phone line tower,
Okay.
which puts him on this back road.
So I wonder if would that him walking? Okay, I know my son, and that's the shortest route to his camp.
If he walked,
The road ends right out there.
if he walked, he would have come to the corner and cut across this field.
But that's as close as cell phone, Pete. Not in town, it's out here.
Mm-hmm. off of that road, the back road into the
Did
compound.
we go down to where it is?
Yeah.
Camp out there, the old camp there.
Oh, but that's where the bean
But
was.
that's where the pin was. That's,
He was out there.
yeah,
So are you guys,
Dylan, Clemmer's grandfather.
this Don.
so what's your name?
Don Haley,
Don and
Jim Brennan.
Jim Brenner?
I've been down to his place twice. I'm down yesterday afternoon, looked around. Hadn't been in his bed, his pickup's locked. All we put in here is supposed to be there.
Is the trailer open?
He never locks it, doesn't lock anyway. Today I took Jim down there with me and we did a little more thorough search.
And he wasn't in the camper. Doesn't look like anybody's been around.
It's been raining off and on since Saturday, so any fresh tracks were kind of missed out.
Yeah.
He was on that back road down there. We had to go look that way. I didn't realize it.
I don't know how. Can you guys show us? I mean,
I don't
we're
know how
not
we would do it though, and with it, he had the green truck.
No.
Walking.
walking. That doesn't mean that's his exact location. That's the closest
That's
cell phone
that's
ping.
the last ping for whether he tried to use it or the last location it updated before it died.
What time was that? Does it tell you?
And that was at 14:58.
So right after
So
you
just before 3 o'clock.
right after you left. So he must have pulled in right behind you, dropped off the grain truck, and I'm telling you, I bet you he took off walking.
As more people arrive at the roadside, conversation continues into what might have happened and what people know at this time.
I said, I can't picture him doing this.
If he didn't have a ride to do it,
Not when it's easier to walk up that road. This
No.
is.
Dylan would take a cut across. I'm telling you, Dylan
He
would
would?
take the show.
Oh, yeah.
Possible.
He's all about exploring.
Yes, that's what he
That mountain
would.
over there, Pigeon Mountain, he's been to the top of that.
Yeah. He would definitely walk this. This is nothing for him.
Well, only other thing we can do is go check his trailer.
The group, after a bit more discussion, head up to the property they last knew Dylan was supposed to be at. After passing through the gate, they would come upon a cluster of outbuildings, including the large shed with the grain truck parked partway underneath it. There are numerous farming vehicles and cars on the property and 2 campers where Jim is currently living. The owner of the property lives far away, and Jim is squatting there and making use of the abandoned buildings. The absentee landlord also owns the farm equipment on the site, and Dylan has been working towards purchasing many of the items to use on his own farm. Dylan's personal truck was also there, locked and undisturbed.
So did anybody, the question I have is, did anybody talk to him about him taking the truck back down there and coming back here? Is this speculation?
No, we,
Walking back.
no, the walking back's, but because there was nobody there to give him a ride, and where his phone pinged, they thought he would take off across it as they're walking.
So has anybody searched where he dropped the truck off?
Yeah, they have. I haven't.
All the vehicles.
Is he there?
Yeah, he's there. He said we can go back or we can park there.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
I don't know the grain truck.
No, I think we'll have them search. Jim's his name.
Yeah, it's Jim Brenner. Right, Brenner?
We'll then start there and work their way this way. I think it's probably the best bet.
I do too. I don't think so either. I think he planned on walking that way. I think he planned on Jim to give him a ride. So we went to Dom's.
Night is closing in, and family, friends, and law enforcement officers aren't much closer to finding Dylan than they were early in the day. They have a rough location from a cell phone ping that puts him in the area near the shed and out towards a large pond on the property, but no one has seen any signs of the young man in the area. Search and rescue teams would be called the next morning, hopefully to turn something up. The family stays behind and checks everything they can, the outbuildings, the vehicles, the campers, and anything else where they might get a clue of where Dylan had gone to or what had befallen him. They find no clues and decide to break the back window of Dylan's locked truck to see if there is anything there and to secure 2 firearms he is known to regularly carry in the vehicle. They didn't find either his pistol or shotgun. just a few loose shells for that shotgun. They do, curiously, find his key fob within the truck. Could he have accidentally locked himself out? The group searches the surrounding area more before coming across their first real clue: a pair of boots a couple hundred yards away from the little cluster of buildings. Dylan's mom, Candace, would be able to identify that those boots were his, a brand and style that he has worn and taken pride in throughout most of his life. Curiously, there were footprints leading into and out of the area, but none matched Dylan's at all. Jim, speaking with Deputy Eddington from Box Elder County, offers some insight into not just the discovery, but the whole situation out there.
They're trying to hit the hole and missed. And yeah, there's clothes all over the place out here.
Yeah. There's just some boots out there they've only been out there for a day or two. And so some boots that what's his name would wear. So you didn't see anybody else around here?
I left here about 1:30, between 1:30 and 2, went over to Don's. And I was there until about 9 o'clock at night. And when I come back, that truck was there.
Okay. And did you know the truck was coming?
No.
Okay.
Dylan don't tell anybody what he's doing.
Okay. So you weren't here when Dylan came down here? Is that kind of a mutual understanding that he can park stuff down here? Or?
Yeah, but he's supposed to let me know about it, a day ahead of time, because I was building a chicken coop in there. I don't know if you've seen it with all my tools on it.
Oh, yeah.
And I had it right in the middle, so I had light, and he pulled everything out. He knocked my horse corral out. So I didn't know what the hell was going on.
So that's your horse on the other side of this little hill here. Okay.
I didn't know. That's just the way Dylan is. So I pulled the truck out. I took the wall out that he knocked out and put that other panel in there, and I backed the truck in straight.
Oh, okay.
But no, that's his truck right there, that fuel truck.
That fuel truck's his too?
Yeah, and he's trying to buy these tractors.
Who you watching here for?
I don't even know anymore.
This far out in the wilderness, it's going to get very dark before long, dark enough to make searching not just extremely difficult, but dangerous as well. Everyone knows it, but no one wants to give up.
Yep, but
You guys gonna work all night out here?
yeah, probably looking for him. I mean, nobody's heard from him, so.
Well, that's not uncommon for Dylan. Like I say,
But he doesn't. His truck is there.
Yeah, I know. That's what makes it so weird, because usually Dylan doesn't like to tell people what he's doing. That's like his grandparents, his mom. He's very secretive. And
Have you known these people for a long time?
I've known Dylan for about a year ago. We run Ed out of here.
He run Ed out of here?
Pretty much. Big blow up between him and Ed. And I don't know if Ed was going to kill him or he was going to kill Ed or what. But Ed has a habit of screwing people over. He's never screwed me over.
So was the grandfather of Dylan part of this deal, like fronting Ed the money when he started to open up this land out here? Was that kind of the?
I don't know. If Joe Cecchio owns this property, I never met him. I've met Rob Gibb, who's in with Joe Cecchio.
Yeah.
And he just let me live out here. Like I say, I'm basically out here Ed got me out here to keep an eye on stuff.
So his grandparents. How long have you known Dylan's grandparents?
Oh, I've never met his grandma, but I've known Larry for a couple of years. He's probably the nicest guy. Kind of killed me a little bit there. I didn't want to say anything in front of him that Dylan's been hanging out in a bar over there, because Larry's drank once in his life by accident. He was him and his friend were in a Mexican restaurant, I guess, and he ordered something that said Coke. And it totally fucked him up.
Oh.
And Larry's a good Mormon, He's just a good guy.
Yeah.
And if he knew that, I think he knows now, but if he knew Dylan was hanging out in that bar over there all the time, and I don't know why the hell they serve him over there. But it's Nevada. They do whatever they want over there.
So perhaps Dylan was not quite the shining star that his parents and grandparents thought he was. Note that Jim doesn't say that he knows Dylan drinks, but perhaps he's been running around with the wrong crowd. Jim continues to show the deputy around the property and remarks on how Dylan was a good kid. Then Jim brings up something that opens up a whole range of possibilities of what might have happened. Dylan had just gotten paid over $30,000 in one lump sum for some work he had done for another farm a couple of days before he disappeared. He hadn't had time to pay back his equipment rentals or other expenses. Had the young and naive man let the wrong people know that he was suddenly wealthy?
Alrighty.
Like I say, you don't go in a bar and brag about how much money you're making, especially in that bar.
Where does he make his money? Oh. Yeah.
There's they've had a couple strong robberies over there. I get this information from Wadsworth. Like I say, this Chase guy is bad news.
Chase Vector.
Vector. If you look up 2016 in Ogden, the SWAT team was called to his father's house, and when they finally got a warrant to get in there, they didn't find him, and they went back in. He was up in the attic, laying in the rafters with insulation.
So it's Chase Vector.
Something like that.
Chase Venstra was known to law enforcement. He operated in the little region where the states of Utah, Nevada, and Idaho came together. He had a reputation for being a petty thief, heavily using methamphetamines, and was rumored to sometimes be involved in stealing and trafficking guns. Could Dylan have run across that man's path? Deputies from Elko County, along with FBI agents, headed to the small village of Montello, Nevada. It's a place that's little more than a wide spot in the road with a post office, a scattering of houses, a few businesses, and 2 bars. As local law enforcement moves out to try to find Chase, local search and rescue begins a massive sweep of the area, using foot patrols, dog teams, and even a helicopter. Searches like this, even ones using specially equipped drones, would continue for well into the next month. The sheer size of the area surrounding the last ping from Dylan's cell phone included almost 750 square miles of land covered by rough brush and rugged terrain, including a handful of abandoned structures, old mine shafts, and numerous washes and gullies. 3 different cadaver dog teams would spend multiple days in the area, but they would turn up nothing more than a few signals given in a shed near a couple of old burn barrels at one small mound of dirt along a wash near the compound. None of these places would actually turn up any remains. In the meantime, deputies and the FBI are following up on some leads. The last place Dylan used his credit card was at the Cowboy Bar in Montello, spending about $40 a couple of days before he disappeared. A detective from Elko County accompanies 2 FBI agents as they question Troy Wadsworth and his son Lionel. The FBI agents reluctantly agree to allow Lionel to stay for the questioning after explaining that Troy isn't a suspect.
We're not here to cause trouble for you, other than to just get you off the ass. And I can appreciate the fact that you've got a lot of people crawling up your ass, and God knows there's a rumor mill around this small area that is talking about all sorts of crazy shit, and I've heard some of those things, right? That and so I've worked plenty of missing people, and I've spent the better part of 24 years working matters involving this kind of stuff. Sometimes it involves missing kids, sometimes it involves missing adults, and I know full well how that really goes. So, I don't care if you record in. You're well within your right to do that. It's just, for me, from a strategy standpoint, and it's just better to interview people as opposed to.
I'm sorry, I can't cooperate. I get your point, but I'm going to be here with my dad, so it's just the way it's going to be.
Why can't you cooperate? I mean, why do you have to be so
He's
adversarial?
my dad, and I'm going to protect him as much as I can. And the best way I can do that would be by sitting there.
Okay, let me ask you this
And if we're just going to talk about this, then we can just end the interview. If this is going to be the discussion until I leave, then we're both going to leave. You understand? And then it won't be a voluntary question. It'll just be, you'll have to get a subpoena.
Well, just listen to your dad for a second.
Let's just get this. There's no way that they can ever be sophisticated into this bullshit.
Do you have anything to do with Dylan's disappearance? Okay, so this is gonna be like a relatively short interview. Is there any way we can verify that you had nothing to do with it?
He disappeared Memorial Weekend, right?
Say what?
He disappeared Memorial Weekend, right?
Yes.
We had 15 family members here on Memorial Weekend.
Okay.
So I saw him less than them, but I was here. They saw me. All right. So you could always question him.
Troy would explain that the last time Dylan was in the bar was on Thursday, May the 26th at around noon. He paid for his burger, fries, and a drink on that day, and for one he had put on his tab the day before.
So were you here when he made that charge?
I was here like 10 minutes before that.
Was he here alone?
Yes.
What is $41 typically get you here?
That was, he got a burger the day before, and, you know, the whole meal, burger, fries, and everything, and then he got one the next day.
Okay.
So he paid for both of them
So
at the same
that's why it
time,
was so high.
because he had a tab on them.
Okay, gotcha.
In a town this size, a barkeep can see anything and often hears every rumor that floats through the community. The agents had to ask the men what they had come across.
What can you tell me about, what do you think happened to Dylan?
I wouldn't even have a clue, because I didn't know anything happened till. Don't even know anything that has happened, really, yet.
Okay.
I'm still thinking, I hope when he shows up, it's both limbs. That's what I. Because I like the kid, he's a good kid.
Okay.
I don't know how to answer it.
Have you heard anything as far as what happened to Dylan?
No.
Rumor, otherwise?
Just that he's missing.
Even the craziest shit you've heard.
I've heard the craziest things, he vanished. There's nothing or anything.
Okay.
That's pretty crazy.
What kind of weird shit have you heard?
Right.
My uncle's talked to psychics and diviners, and there's been plenty of rumors that anything from one of the farmhands did it, to his parents did it, to Kurt did it, to I mean, if you want a rumor, it's out there.
Gotcha. What have you heard as far as what the farmhands do?
Just the story that they're spreading around is that he got fired, and maybe that was the reason that, you know, maybe he was pissed about it or something. I can't remember their names, or I named the one, but
Fair enough. Okay.
who I don't know.
Don
Okay.
and Jim.
Okay.
I know them both real quite a lot.
Gotcha.
They live out there. I've never been up to them. I don't even know where they live out there. I've never been to Dylan's farm.
Okay.
Don't know anything about it.
Gotcha.
I know it's loose ends. That's all I know.
And then the questioning comes back around to Chase.
What about you guys who don't know who Chase is, right?
Oh yeah. Everybody knows Chase.
What can you tell me about him?
He's a thief.
Okay. What else?
No, pretty shady, really. Didn't know that at first, but I thought he was a pretty decent kid when I first met him.
Gotcha.
Kind of soured real quick.
Okay. Is there anything in Dylan's background that would suggest to you at all that he was involved in any kind of like criminal behavior?
Dylan himself?
Yeah.
No.
Good kid, hard worker,
Yeah.
drug user at all?
If I heard that, I probably would have a hard time choking it down.
Okay.
Because I couldn't see it. Couldn't see it in that kid, no.
So the local bar owner says Dylan was a good kid, apparently wasn't a drinker, and only came in for a meal when passing through town. Chase, on the other hand, hadn't been cleared of anything. And when the name was brought up to Dylan's mom, she remembered him from something Dylan had told her in a phone call a week before the disappearance.
On Wednesday, May 25th, Dylan called me at 9:28 in the morning. I was at work at Costco, and he tells me, "You'll never believe what happened to me, Mom. This guy runs out of the desert. He's barefoot. He looks all beat up, blah, blah, blah." And he wanted a ride, and I wouldn't give him a ride. But he had made a phone call to his dad, and his dad was going to come get him. Well, we have confirmed Dylan gave Chase a ride. And I know the reason why Dylan lied to me, because he knows he'd get his ass chewed if he told me he picked up a tweaker in the middle of the desert. So he kind of left that part out, but he wanted to tell me the story. So that's what led to this whole Chase deal.
Other tips had come in, and Chase was a popular subject for many of them, including a couple that said he and another man from Montello had actually abducted Dylan and that they were holding him somewhere near town in hopes of ransom. That did not turn out to be the case, though, as Dylan's mom would explain.
So during that same day, Chase finally reached out to me. He's seen all this stuff on Facebook. He kind of came out of his hole because, you know, he's a tweaker. He goes in holes. That's what they do. And so he told me his version, which matched Larry, the fire department, volunteer fire department chief there. And Larry got a hold of me, and Larry said, Candace, I did see him, his son, and one of the road grader guys, the state guy, were working on some property, and they seen Chase get in Dylan's pickup and Dylan give him a ride. And then they seen Dylan come back without Chase. And then Chase came back after that, and he was blabbling about he left his bag of guns out there.
Okay, so Larry with the fire department?
Yeah.
Okay, and what day did he see that happen?
Wednesday the 25th.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got the story confirmed that, yes, Dylan did give Chase a ride. So when Chase came back out trying to find his bag of guns, and Larry says he doesn't know if he ever found it or not, then a white car showed up, he got in it and left, and that was his dad and his brother and sister-in-law, as he said, who picked him up.
Okay, and that was on the
Wednesday
25th?
the 25th, yep, in the afternoon. And since then, he's been in Utah. Now, he gave us places that his face could be on camera. Multiple neighbors come out and said, yes, he's there. So when I say, you know, when we as a family say we've cleared him because he's now in custody. He's no longer of interest to me. He's in custody for unrelated charges.
Chase would give an interview with authorities and sign a statement as to where he had been during those days. Between the people who would go on to say they had seen him in another town during this time working at his job and shopping, and verifying by security camera footage, the man had an airtight alibi. There was no way he could be directly involved. So, at this point, the main suspect, Chase Ventra, had been cleared and investigators were left without a lead. Until one day, a scuba dive certified member of the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office was performing a grid search at the bottom of the Lucin Pond. The deputy finds a cell phone, Dylan's cell phone, at the bottom of the pond, lodged in the mud. It is placed as protocol in a plastic bag filled with pond water and entered in as evidence. It is non-functional, but perhaps can be brought back to some state of functioning. There's no telling what they could find from it. One definite piece of evidence they get is exactly 15.1 miles from the last tower it pinged off of before 3 p.m. on the day he disappeared. In the meantime, 2 FBI agents would go back out and speak with Don Hatley, who had helped the family on the first night of the search and who had been a friend of Dylan's. Don was working on his property getting a water pump going.
What to do is make sure we know timelines really well.
Okay.
So what we understand is that Dylan had gone to Jim's house that morning, right?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of? Wasn't there, he was getting his grain truck into the...
His grain truck was here. He was getting seed out of it to plant this.
Okay, so his grain truck was here that morning, and I thought he was taking it towards Jim's house, no? To put it into the...
Yeah, that's what he was going to do.
All right. Well, you explain to me what you know about that.
Okay, I'm just going by what I heard from Karen and Jim and whatnot.
Okay.
Karen told me that she talked to Dylan Saturday morning, and it was going to rain, so he called her back when he got the grain truck under cover.
Okay. He called?
No, I think Karen called him. He called Karen. I don't remember.
Okay.
Anyway, that's what bothered her. She said, you know, he always calls me right back.
Yeah.
She called him, or they spoke in the morning. Well, Jim came over to my place at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for dinner.
Yeah.
He left about 9. Next day, was when Karen called me, asked me to come out here and look around, see if I could find Dylan. And I did. Well, on the way out, I talked to Jim on the phone. He said, yeah, Dylan must have come in while I was gone last night. The grain truck's in the shed. He moved all my crap out of the way. Okay. He said, all he had to do was call and I'd unlock the gate. Apparently he unwired it. But he wired it back up, so it's good. And I come out here and inventory on everything. Or no, I looked around for Dylan. I called Karen back and told her, his truck's here and it's locked, which is unusual. Dylan never locks his truck.
Yeah.
It's in the trailer.
The FBI agents would drill down on the specifics of that day that he spent with Jim. Don took out his phone and checked the times he had texted and called Jim that day. He said that he'd sent Jim a text at 12:32 saying that the Yellowstone Season 1 reruns would start that evening, and the two often watched those together at his place. At 2:06, he texted Jim again to let him know that he'd be putting ribs on the grill around 3 p.m. Jim showed up right on time, which was unusual for a man who was oftentimes an hour or more late for just about anything. That night, Jim had stayed until about 9 p.m. before leaving. Don didn't have contact with him again until Dylan's mom asked Don to check on the property. Jim grudgingly agreed to help out. The FBI agents ask Don if he has any questions, and it dawns on Don that if they are questioning him right now, there's a chance that Jim is also being questioned at the same time.
Now, what question did you have?
Oh. What should I do about Jim? I mean, I'm supposed to go pick him up when I leave here and take him up to Grouse Creek with me.
Well, he's not there right now. He's not there right now. So, as far as the immediate, there's nothing to do with him right now.
Okay.
As far as the future goes,
so is he in custody?
No, he's not in custody. He's with us, and they're going to talk to him.
Okay.
So,
I just, when he's out of town or whatever, I take care of his dog. If he doesn't have his dog with him, and feed his horse. I just.
All right. Well,
I'm not going to let animals starve out.
No, I understand that. That's good.
So I don't have to worry about going to see Jim.
Yeah, don't worry about it right now.
Yeah, you just dropped a bomb, man, that I wasn't expecting. That happened before 3 o'clock. That's just. Yeah.
And then Don would drop the bomb on this case.
I'll tell you something.
Okay.
And I really don't think it has anything to do with anything. You guys found ammunition and stuff at Jim's.
Yeah.
And he's a black powder enthusiast.
Yep.
But he figured that would be a reason to poke him, so to speak, say whatever. So he brought his black powder rifles over to my place.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Where are those?
Well, I put one behind my bed in my bedroom, and the other one's leaned up in the corner next to the table on the couch.
When did you bring them? After Dylan.
Oh yeah, definitely after.
The weight of the situation, the turning in of his friend for weapons, the loss of Dylan, it was all taking a toll on Don, who just wanted a quiet life out in the middle of nowhere. Law enforcement officers would search Don's place and seize the rifles. They would also find a black powder cap and ball revolver and a modern .22 rifle that Jim had asked Don to hold on to for him. Jim would end up incarcerated on federal firearms charges. While he had originally told Jim that it was legal for him to own black powder guns, it would have only been legal if the firearms had been manufactured before 1898 and therefore antiques. In the case of the ones he had, it was a modern reproduction. As Jim sat in jail, he began speaking to other detainees, including one who had served time with him in the past. And then he allegedly began talking a bit too much. All the phone calls made from the jail by someone incarcerated are recorded, and both parties are made aware of that beforehand. Let's listen in as James' cellie or cellmate talks to a friend on the outside.
Do you have a Sally?
Yeah, I got a Sally.
What's his name?
Huh?
Is it Brendan?
Is it who?
Well, who? What is he?
Look up a name on YouTube called Dylan Round.
Dylan Round?
Yeah, Dylan Round. See what you get.
Okay.
when you look up that name, Dylan Rounds,
Yeah.
did,
Here, let me look it up right now. Hold on.
huh?
I can look it up right now while I'm on the
Yeah,
phone.
do it on YouTube.
Look him up on YouTube?
Yeah, look it up on YouTube.
What did he do? Did he post his crime on YouTube or something?
Somebody did.
Let me say Dylan Rounds, Rounds.
Yeah.
I feel like I know this kid.
You should.
Oh, this kid right here,
Yeah.
and he disappeared.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we were in fucking jail with James Brenner.
Yeah.
I was in jail with James Brenner. Wait, so this Dylan kid, he faked his death?
No, he did it. He's been telling
Oh,
me.
you're in with the guy who was being accused of killing it?
Yeah, Brenner.
That guy was in our pod, in F pod, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Did he kill the kid?
Yes.
Oh my god. And now, didn't he think he was going to get out of jail and shit?
Yes. Now you got it.
You're in the cell with him?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. What's that like? Can he hear me right now?
No. I'm on the phone out in the pod. I don't have a headphone.
I hear you.
While this was going on, search teams and volunteers were still out in the wilderness looking for any sign of Dylan, and they finally found one. A cap, seemingly a simple cap at first amongst the dry scrub, but it was nearly one of a kind. It was a commemorative John Deere cap given out only to employees a few years before. It had been given to Dylan by his uncle and had become his everyday work hat. There was no way anyone else in that distant and desolate place would have had that specific hat. And then someone remembered that someone else had a cap like that, or at least did for a time. Could the killer have been among them the entire time, participating in the hunt, wearing a trophy all the time? And then information began to be slowly teased back to life from that phone that had gone dead at the bottom of the Lucin Pond. It showed Dylan had arrived at the shed at Jim's compound around 6:49 a.m., and it stays there for about 45 minutes. Then, from 7:36, it is en route back to Dylan's farm and returns to Jim's property by 8:30 after spending nearly 8 minutes at the property gate. It moves around the property until 11 a.m., then remains stationary for the next 3 hours and 36 minutes. It then moves again at 2:37 p.m. when it moves from the shed to Lucin Pond. It goes dead 55 seconds later at the bottom of that pond. A warrant would be sought and granted for Jim's phone. The location tracking on it for that same morning would match up completely with Dylan's phone. The only difference would be that Jim received a text at 2:06 p.m. that day from Don Hatley reminding him that he would be putting ribs on the grill at 3 p.m. And then the most damaging thing of them all was brought back from the depths of the phone's memory. At first, it just seemed like an innocuous photo, but it was actually a highly compacted series of time-lapse shots taken from Dylan's camera. Shots taken from within Jim's camper of Jim after something brutal and bloody had happened. A new search of Jim's camper would turn up the camouflage t-shirt he was seen wearing in the photo. It still had bits of Dylan's blood on it. Jim Brenner would be charged with the first-degree murder of 19-year-old Dylan Rounds. They might not have a body, but there was now a preponderance of evidence. Jim would remain silent about the case from there on out as he awaited trial, maintaining that he was innocent. Once, while being transported from a jail he was being held in to court during the long ride, he was asked if anyone could lead them to Dylan's body. He intoned, "I could," and then said nothing more. In the end, by the end of summer of 2024, Jim Brenner would cut a plea deal, and in exchange for reducing the charges to second-degree murder and 2 counts of firearm possession by a felon, he would plead guilty and reveal the location of Dylan's body. Search teams would head to that area, and they would find few scant skeletal remains, along with some of Dylan's clothes. The elements and the wildlife of the area had scattered the remains terribly. In the end, it was cold comfort to the family to have Dylan's remains back. Finally, they were able to put him to rest. Many attended the funeral and memorial service, remembering the young man, hard worker who believed in his future, one that was taken away from him. In a courtroom of the Box Elder County Courthouse, Jim Brenner would accept his fate, saying only that Dylan had broken into his place. He was handed down 3 30-year sentences to run consecutively, 1 for second-degree murder, 2 for the firearms charges. He may never see a day of freedom again for the rest of his life. When asked by the judge to stand, turn, and face the family of Dylan Rounds, he refused.